What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Extra Biscuits. We can't fit everything into an hour on Biscuits SEC Live, so we are doing these. We're previewing every team in the SEC as we get closer to the season. So we're looking forward to we got a couple more to do now, but we got Ole Miss today. We got our good friend Stephen Willis of Locked On Ole Miss with us. Going to be a lot of fun. Stephen, what's going on today? Good to see you, man.
Man, we're talking about crazy transfer portal stuff. We're talking about the Louisville game. We're having fun about talking about the women's soccer team for Ole Miss is 4-0. So we got stuff going on.
Absolutely. We are, week 0 is here. Week 1 is right around the corner. Cannot wait for that. Louisville game is going to be a lot of fun. For those of you guys who do not follow Stephen, who do not subscribe yet to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, you are way behind because those subscribers are going through the roof. Right there, as you can see, Stephen Willis, that is his icon on X, so be sure to go find that at Stephen Willis, at the Stephen Willis, and then Locked On Ole Miss on YouTube. So be sure to go subscribe and go follow him there. All right, Stephen, you know this about us because we're friends and we talk every single week on SEC After Dark. We do our Biscuit Index ratings every single year. I've got Ole Miss here at a 10, which means they're basically right under the elite level or pretty much at the elite level. The only thing that they're missing is a national championship, and that's why they're right there with Texas and Alabama right now, and the program is in really good health despite Lane Kiffin leaving last year, and then we got Pete Golding, who took you guys on a deep run. So just off the bat here, I actually want to know, before we get into vibes, because this has been in the news, so I think we want to talk a little bit about first, Daquan Wright and Xavier Harris, right? Both former Ole Miss players, went to the NFL. Now they're coming back, and they're going to LSU is what it's seeming like. So I want to know just what your thoughts are from outside of LSU. You've seen these guys play before. What are you thinking, and will they even suit up for LSU when it's all said and done?
Well, right now, I don't think they'll play it down. I don't think that would happen with everything that's going on around college football right now, with all the conferences stepping in to create rules against that. I don't expect anybody to play or do that. And it could be a trickle down thing to like RJ Luis, the guy that LSU just signed in basketball. It could go down to basketball as well. But I don't think they will do that. But I think it's interesting. I mean, Daquan Wright's a good player. Everybody saw that last year on the run that was happening. He's a good player. Xavier Harris can be a good player. The rumor is he's like 50 pounds overweight, but that's another discussion point of what's going on. I think that what they tried to do is a sham and an embarrassment on the sport. And it is in the same vein, although 50 times more serious. Do you remember back in 2023, 2024, when Ole Miss was at the center of the news for faking injuries and all that happened? They would lay down and everything was going on. It was a huge problem. Everybody got outraged. Ole Miss played LSU. And Ole Miss that year had the most sacks in the country, the most tackles for loss, and LSU did not get called for one holding penalty that night. Not one. The officials took it upon themselves to fix the situation and kind of punch Lane in the mouth. And Lane quit doing it after that. I think something serious, something similar is about to happen here. I think this is where the conferences are going to band up and kind of slap him down just a little bit. And this is going to be a dead issue.
I hope that's the case. I put this on Twitter, maybe it was yesterday or early this morning, just that there has to be a line drawn in the sand somewhere. And hopefully this is the red line that we do not cross, because we've crossed every other red line in this sport. It feels like at this point, some people would say, why not one more? And he's just trying to gain a competitive edge. But this is not what people fell in love with college football for in college athletics. So hopefully this is the red line and it stops. In the Big Ten, just an hour or two ago, as we were recording this, put out that they're not going to allow it and that everybody is on board. It was voted on. It is a rule in the Big Ten that their NFL players will not be allowed back, which I think even begs the question then, if that's the case in the Big Ten, why would they then schedule an SEC team out of conference going forward if the SEC is going to allow NFL players, or the ACC, what have you? I think it's going to have to be uniform across the board. So I think, to your point, I think that's where we're going.
Yeah, the ACC and the Big 12 is preliminary, taking steps to go in that general direction as well. The SEC is going to go slower than everybody else, and this is what I don't think anybody understands. The feeling is going to be the exact same thing that's in the Big 10, the ACC, and the Big 12. The difference is patient zero for this is a member in the SEC, which means they have to eggshell it a little bit, they have to finesse it a little well, and they have to give him every off ramp to correct this yourself before it gets serious. So I think that's what's going on. And that's why in this situation, they're going to say, oh, Tony Petitti literally looks like he knows what he's doing. Yeah.
Hero.
Yeah. It's really easy to do that whenever you have no stakes in what's going on. And the SEC right now, for better or for worse, they're the Brendan Sorsby, the Texas Tech, the Big 12 of this scandal.
Yes, it's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out. And I'm with you that I understand why the SEC has to slow play it, but hopefully we get to a point where it's null and void. It's not a problem. Let's talk about something a little bit more positive on the Ole Miss front here. I told you, okay, Biscuit Index, 10 rating for Ole Miss out of 12. That's pretty dadgum good. This program, despite everything that happened with Lane Kiffin, is on really solid footing with Pete Golding and everything he did in the offseason. So, Jimmy, what's the vibe in Oxford, man? How are Ole Miss fans feeling going into 2026?
You would not believe how excited people are about the roster in this season. All around town, everybody. They think the defense can be better than it was in 2024. They think the offense is absolutely loaded. They have a legitimate Heisman candidate. They have a legitimate Doak Walker Award candidate. They have a legitimate Luke Rosa Award candidate. And everybody's going to snicker at that. But when you only have to get to the 45-yard line to get points, that matters. And this team has probably the best special teams in all of college football. The defense is going to be much improved, and that offense is just the offense. I do think that around Oxford, I don't want to say playoffs or bust because that kind of connotes a negative feeling about what's going on, but everybody's expectations this season is the playoffs and competing honestly for the SEC title and for the national championship. That's where the head is in Oxford, Mississippi. Now, it could all fall apart. We've all seen football seasons with teams that expected this to drop down, but the expectations going into the season is that.
I'm very excited to watch this team. As we put them in that index rating, 10, and in Pete Golding's first year, can he do it again? You know, okay, he did it in the playoff. He got them to the cusp of the national title game. Probably could have gotten them in if the referees had called a pass interference there at the end. So they were right on the cusp. And with Trinidad Chambliss and Kawan Lacey, two guys there's already a Heisman campaign for both of these guys. You know, you got to be excited about that. So we talked about all of the positives here for Ole Miss, right? Just to start out with, how are the vibes? The vibes are high. Now talk to me a little bit about a big question, all right? If you got a big question mark, if there's one that you can choose here for this team, what is it that you're thinking?
Oh, it's the right tackle position. And that's just because, honestly, it hasn't been named at this point, not because they don't have options. So whoever wins it is likely going to be serviceable, but we're hoping it's a little bit more than serviceable with Trinidad. Now, the benefit is it is not the blind side of the quarterback. It's the side they run around. And if you look last year in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia, scrambling out right, it doesn't matter if you have a free rush or not. Trinidad's going to get around you in that situation. So that's a positive. But in the run game with Kawan Lacey and all of that, the problem is I think it's going to be Tommy Kinsler winning that job. I think Tommy Kinsler is going to be the snap one starter for Ole Miss, but he's 350 pounds, and they're working to try and get him into real shape because as fast as Ole Miss wants to go, they're going to have to get him in maximum shape. And I think that's the big concern. They have said that Carius Kern, the former 5-star player that signed with LSU and transferred to Ole Miss, the light bulb is kind of flickering like it's going to come on. Hasn't quite yet, but there is some reason for optimism about that. Then you have the kid from England, Enoch Wangoy, and Connor Hawes that are going to be at least depth pieces on the line as well. And I think his name is Troy Everett, center came up from Oklahoma. I bet they wish they still had him around at the moment. He's going to be probably the Swiss Army knife in the interior offensive line, and on the left tackle position, it's kind of been locked down since the spring, and that's going to be Terez Davis, the son of Ricky Davis, who played in the NBA for about a decade.
Well, you just laid it out. You got a lot of options there, which is huge. And that's going to be a big deal, that right tackle position, running off either one of those hips when you're Kwan Lacey, finding those holes. So if that guy can move some people, then Kwan Lacey has a good year. So definitely something to watch as we go into 26. Now let's talk a little bit more here about the offense. Obviously, a lot of things changed. Lane Kiffin leaves for LSU. He's the offensive mastermind, but then you had Charlie Weiss Jr. under him as well. Charlie Weiss Jr. also heads to Baton Rouge. So now you got John David Baker, who comes in. He knows this Kiffin offense pretty well, if I'm correct. I think he was under Kiffin at one point. So I think Pete Golding makes a good hire in getting him to come to Oxford from Coastal Carolina. So we got Trinidad back as well. We got Kwan Lacey. We've talked about that. There's some great pieces at tight end, some great pieces at wide receiver. So talk to me about, I know there's a lot of change here. What are the expectations this year for the Rebels offense with all that change?
I think it's going to be good, but it might be different. And I think it's going to be equally as good, but it might be different. And John David Baker was here in 2021. He's responsible for Jackson Dart coming to Ole Miss, Michael Trigg as well, if you're interested about that. He was on the USC staff in 2020 and then came to Ole Miss. He was the co-offensive coordinator with Charlie Weiss Jr. in 2022 and 2023. Then he went to East Carolina and took an offense that was the worst in college football, made them a top 25 unit in back-to-back years. So it's nice that he took everything that this Ole Miss offense was. Now, remember, he was here with Jeff Lebby too. So there's a lot of Jeff Lebby in his system to go with the Charlie Weiss stuff. And then he meshed them all together, went to ECU and made a offense out of it. Caton Hauser was the quarterback at ECU. He made Caton Hauser look pretty good. Caton Hauser is not that good. So that's exciting to see what happens there. I'm curious to see what it looks like against Louisville. It's going to be about 80% of what they say is familiar to us. And whenever they talk about that, that's Jeff Lebby and the Charlie Weiss stuff. But there's 20% of his offense. He was a Seth Luttrell guy. He was a Graham Harrell guy, a bunch of air raid type stuff that he can do from time to time. And because of that, I expect a lot of screen game, either bubbles, jet sweeps, regular running back screens, jailbreak screens, all of that. I think that's going to be incorporated as well. And one of the players that I'm excited about is named Jonte Cook. He started off at Texas. He was a 5-star out of high school. 2 times I went to the Under Armour All-American game covered, and I've been covering it since pretty much 2020. And 2 times I've walked off of that practice field with just my jaw dropped. One was Zach Branch. Everybody knows Zach Branch. He was at Georgia a year ago. Unbelievable player. The other was Jonte Cook. And it might not have worked out at Texas. It might not have worked out at Washington for the 3 weeks he was there, but it kind of worked out at Syracuse. And I'm going to be honest about this. If Steve Angeli doesn't get hurt for Syracuse, Ole Miss might not be able to afford Jonte Cook for the numbers that he was about to put up. He ended up with, 66 catches. He was a pretty good machine. And part of that was with a lacrosse player playing quarterback for Syracuse. So I'm excited to see which direction he could go. When you have a Kwan Lacey, who might be the best open field player on Ole Miss's team. You have Trinidad Chambliss, who is a pass run option that makes the defense worry. And you have Jonte Cook, who is a ball in his hand, elusive, extremely explosive player. And you've got the Jets on the outside. Yeah, this offense is going to be just fine.
I'm fascinated to watch that. The Jonte Cook is a great call out because his recruitment, he was between A&M and Texas. He's famous for the video making fun of A&M, But at the same time, I was curious after he left Texas, like, where's he going to go? What's he going to do? And then the whole Washington thing happens. And then, like you said, the Syracuse, he popped last year when he had a good quarterback. So to see him in this Ole Miss offense, especially with that Mike Leach flavor, the Graham Harrell, add in the Texas Tech, the Art Briles flavor to this offense, it could be fascinating. So let's move over here to the defense. We've talked a lot about on different shows here about all the pieces that Pete Golding brought in for this defense because he could finally spend the money on the defensive side of the ball that he wanted to spend. He's got the tent pole in the middle there with Suntarine Perkins coming back. And so he lost a couple of pieces. They went to LSU, et cetera. So I want to hear what your expectations are for this defense, and then talk to us a little bit about some of those pieces that Pete Golding brought back in, because I'm not as familiar with them, and I know that most of the audience outside of Oxford probably won't be as well.
Yeah, Brian Brown, the defensive coordinator for Ole Miss, in his interview about a week ago, was asked the question, can this team be better than 2024? And that team is, for those who don't know, led the nation in sacks and tackles for loss. They were an elite defense. And Brian Brown said it might be a little bit too early to make that call, but I can tell you something right now, this team is deeper than 2024. And they might go 10 deep on the defensive line with what's going on. The rushers, you lose Prince Will Amamielem, but you add Blake Purchase, and you add Jonathan Maldonado, and then you add Landon Barnes. And for people that don't know, it's like, oh, Landon Barnes, who's that? Well, he's the guy that replaced Colin Simmons at Duncanville High School in Texas, continued to do Colin Simmons stuff, and then signed as the top player in the class. He's going to get on the field likely this year, even though Blake Purchase and Jonathan Maldonado is there. There's a lot of versatility going on. And then the back end of that defense a year ago, which was the soft spot of the team. That's the reason they lost to the Miami Hurricanes. The bust in the back, they missed tackles, things like that. They played really hard and did a really good job. But when one of your safeties is 5'10", 180 pounds, he's a good player, but he's a great value player. You're shopping from the bargain bins on that, because Lord knows you needed an 8th wide receiver when you only play 4. So this year they go out and get Edwin Joseph from Florida State, a starter, somebody that can play on the outside, can play on the inside, all of that. They went and added Jonell Aguirre, who started at Georgia. They went and added Sharif Denson, who started at Florida. They added Jay Crawford, who started at Auburn. You get the idea of how they wanted to fix the back end of this defense, because the idea is that, yes, they're going to drop 8 from time to time and force a college quarterback to throw into a small window, because they would be stupid not to. But this year, instead of having to do it every play, they get to do it when they want to do it. And they can trust the back end of that defense to let the front 7 get turned loose. And the front 7 is going to be the strength of this team. When you look at Luke Farrelly and Keaton Thomas was all Big 12 essentially at Baylor. Luke Farrelly was the ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year at Cal, and then the whole Clemson thing happened. But we're not even going to talk about that. But those guys, Pete Golding called them erasers. And he said this defense is pretty good when there's an eraser. In 2024, Ole Miss had an eraser in Chris Paul. This year, Keaton Thomas kind of steps right in to the Chris Paul role. And I think Ole Miss upgraded with Luke Farrelly over TJ Daugherty. TJ Daugherty is a really good player. They're going to talk about he led the SEC in tackles. Yeah, he did. But he had 92 tackles in 15 games. We had 15 games that we were pulling from. That's going to skew what is happening. Keaton Thomas, for instance, had 2 less tackles at Baylor in 3 less games. So that's one of the things that you need to look for on that. So, and the front defensive line, Will Eccles, absolute machine up there. Cam Franklin, really great. They brought in Mekhi Barrow from Florida, who is a 6'5", 350-pound guy that they can put in the middle of the defense. And they got Jaheim Otis, who the last time he was a real threat on defense was when Pete Golding coached him at Alabama. And if he can make that work to where him and Barrow are just alternating, they have a chance to be really, really good. I'm excited to see exactly what this defense looks like. Now, Louisville, Lincoln Kienholz is the quarterback there, the transfer from Ohio State. A little bit of a running thing, so there's not much film on that. But for those that know, Jeff Brom is a disciple of the Bobby Petrino tree, and Bobby Petrino famously coached Lamar Jackson, which means they can use an athletic running quarterback in their system, but there's not going to be much film. So they're going to have to play their assignment correctly. They're going to have to play really, really smart because there's not going to be very much to go off of.
I can't wait to watch this defense because you talked about a lot there, and this all kind of comes together with what you just talked about. I said this on SEC After Dark, but I feel like with Pete Golding now in charge of this defense, being able to spend the money where he wants, et cetera, right? A lot of the money was being spent on offense previously with Lane Kiffin. They spent some on defense. They got some good players. But now it's Pete Golding holding the purse strings, and it's like the monkey's got the gun. It's like, hey, finally I can spend and get the exact guys that I want to build this defense exactly as I want it. And now I think he potentially has the players to do that and exactly the guys that he wants. So it's Pete Golding, right? He's coached some great defenses, and even when he had to bargain basement shop, the defense was still good enough to get them to the cusp of the national title game and to have Ole Miss on the cusp of the playoffs. In the playoffs, all those sorts of things. So you have to think with his guys, it's very exciting to see what he's going to be able to do this year. So you named a lot of players for me there, both on offense and on defense. So what I want is really it may be somebody you named already, maybe it's somebody that you haven't, but you can go offense or defense, or you can give me one or two from both. Are there a couple of names that you're looking at that you're excited to see that folks outside of Oxford, outside of Rebel Nation may not be as familiar with, but in week 4, right, they're going to look up, or maybe it's even Louisville in week 1, they look up and like, who is that guy for Ole Miss? And he's just popping off the screen.
I think I'm gonna name 4 players, and 2 of which I've already named. One is Jonte Cook, one is Keaton Thomas. We've already talked about that. Those 2 are guys that I'm going to be glued in, locked in with as the season starts. But 2 players that are interesting is Caleb Cunningham is finally healthy. He was a former 5-star out of high school. He's a wide receiver. He is somebody that can be that typical Ole Miss wide receiver body type that you're used to seeing. He also has run after the catch ability with the ball that's similar to what A.J. Brown's was able to do whenever he was running around at Ole Miss. So he has an extremely high ceiling. The problem is he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Pete Golding in his press conference this week said he finally is. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. And the other is Mekhi Frazier. He is Kejuan Lacey's backup running back. He's 5'11", 220 pounds, an explosive guy. He's another one out of Texas. He's the rare thing that transferred into a situation where he knew he wasn't going to be the guy. And he came in and he is going to function in short yardage. I think he had 100 yards rushing against Michigan for Michigan State last year. He is a good back. They say he's explosive. And because of that, I think you're going to see some 21 personnel to where him and Kejuan Lacey are on the field at the same time, but they go at tempo using Kejuan Lacey as almost a de facto slot wide receiver. I think that is something to watch. As John David Baker said, 307 carries, that's way too much. I wouldn't be opposed to 307 touches. We just don't want to run him between the tackles so much. So I do expect him to have a role in the pass game this year.
Got it. Okay. Tuck those away. That's going to be very interesting to see, especially as we see this John David Baker offense unfold, right? There's going to be a lot of these different wrinkles, as we talked about earlier, that come into play here. Let's talk now. Let's start to get into the schedule here. I want to know, from your perspective, what do you think Ole Miss fans would be happy with? What is a successful season? Is it, like you started this show out saying, is it playoffs or bust essentially? Is 9-3 good enough, or is that a successful season in year 1 of Pete Golding? Like, where's the fan base in terms of what is success in 2026?
I think if Ole Miss wins 9 games and they're on the cusp of the playoffs and the decision goes the other way, I think everybody's would be fine with that. I think that playoffs is the expectation, but they would be fine at 9-3. If they're 8-4 or 7-5, it's a disaster. And there's going to be people that are freaking out about it. But yeah, I think on the cusp of the playoffs, 9 games, 10 games, that area, that's the realm where I expect them to be.
Got it. And I know we'll get into the schedule here. I think this is the regular schedule I have, but I really don't like this one. I like this other one. I think you're going to like it too. Maybe. As folks are coming to know here, we like a good schedule reveal. And this is Elijah Moore just with a great touchdown celebration. So I won't make you look at that the whole time. Yeah. Here is the
that was back when the Egg Bowl was the Egg Bowl.
That's right. That's right. We need to bring back all the craziness. Maybe not for your Ole Miss Rebels losing, but at least just the drunk by the end of the first quarter Egg Bowls would be great. All right. So talk to me. I know you said on the SEC Squad Show that you think Ole Miss might just win the entire thing this season, and we've got they definitely could, and they've got. I mean, this guy right here on the schedule, Trinidad Chambliss, Kawan Lacey, a lot of these pieces we've talked about. So walk me through the schedule here, and really what I'm looking for is where do you think is the hinge game? Like if you win this game, you're like, all right, we're rolling. This thing we really could make a deep run in the playoff, or hey, we lose this game and this one might be a rougher year than we expected.
I think everybody's going to point to like LSU and Texas and Oklahoma and Georgia, and those are big games. Everybody knows those are big games.
Yeah.
So those aren't necessarily hinge games, like you say. I think at Florida after LSU is a massive game. Ole Miss doesn't do well traditionally in the swamp, and all of the emotional capital that's going to be on that Ole Miss game is ridiculous. If you beat Florida going into the bye week, 12-0 at that point is on the table. Yeah, I mean, it literally is on the table. If you can get through that Florida game, it's going to be fantastic. And the other one that I'm looking at is Auburn, and that's a home game. It's 11 o'clock in the morning Central Time. It's between at Texas and Georgia and Oklahoma. It's just one of those games that have a chance to get weird. But those are the two games that if Ole Miss gets past them, I think the other ones are going to take care of themselves.
Those are two great ones to point out. In fact, looking at Ole Miss's schedule earlier, I was circling Florida as well because that's such a classic letdown spot, and you have to go to the swamp after you play this, incredible emotional roller coaster game with LSU that everyone has had circled since Lane Kiffin left for Baton Rouge. And Florida, who knows? Maybe they're going to be a little bit better this season under John Summerall. That roster is still very talented. If you go look at their blue chip ratio, it's right on the cusp of being able to win a national championship. It's way higher than most people would expect. So that's definitely not an easy game. All right. Now I want to know 7.5, as folks saw on that schedule. That was the over-under win total. You told me pre-show that has now gone up. Some have the line at 8.5 now. So do you think they go over? Do you think they go under on this season?
Yeah, if you listen to what I said in this broadcast, I think they go over. I talked with Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets a couple of weeks ago, and this was his however he was describing his 47-time sledgehammer pick of the year, and he basically said this felt like free money, and like his biggest bet is them hitting that level, and I agree with it. Now I understand where it came from and why it's so low, because if you look at the schedule, but I also think it's discounting what Ole Miss actually has, and I think Ole Miss can get a win in that.
I think they got a really good shot too. I was a little surprised to see it that low, frankly. I get the reasoning, like you said, but I was kind of like, man, I mean, this team was on the cusp last year, and they got two of their biggest pieces coming back. They got the biggest piece on defense coming back. But with some of the newness there and a lot of new players to the transfer portal, I guess I can see where you get to at least starting the line at 7.5. All right, Stephen, as you know, we are Biscuits and SEC. We love Southern culture. We love Southern food, and we love SEC football. So we brought all that stuff together with Biscuits and SEC. So the favorite question we like to ask all of our guests, especially ones who haven't been on the program before, which crazy enough, you actually have not been on our program, but for all these years we've known each other, still haven't been on the program. But this time we made that right. We got you on here today. I want to know, favorite biscuit spot, is it Orlando, somewhere in Oxford, or maybe it's even a favorite recipe you got? Floor is yours.
Nashville, Tennessee, Loveless Cafe. That is the place that is known for biscuits. They're absolutely amazing. When I'm up there, it's almost a must go. So yeah, that's what they're known for, literally biscuits. So yeah, that's my thing.
I've heard all types of good things about Loveless Cafe. In fact, I think the first person to tell us about it, I think it was Ellie Williamson, who covers Tennessee for TPL Tennessee. She's up there in Knoxville. She gets up to Nashville a good amount. And then I think it was Corey Burton, literally Corey Burton, our friend from Locked On Vandy. He lives in Nashville. He said Loveless Cafe, 100%, not even close. So I think Loveless Cafe may have the most favorite biscuit spots of anybody who's come on the show.
And probably most people that's gone to biscuit spots, if we're going to be honest, because yeah, it's that good. It really is that good. And it's all you can eat.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm about to buy a plane ticket right now to get up there and check it out. So, all right, Stephen, good to see you, man. Everybody, if you do not already follow Stephen Willis, go check him out. Locked On Ole Miss podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcast, but you can check it out on YouTube. Be sure to go subscribe there and then go follow him over on X at the Stephen Willis, and he's on TikTok and on Instagram and all that good stuff as well. So be sure to follow him for all of his Ole Miss coverage. He does a great job covering the Rebels. And we are part of his After Dark network as well. You can catch us every Thursday. We're about to start making our picks here coming up because games are here.
With a spreadsheet went out this morning.
Yes, that's right. We got to start. And week 0 counts this year. Probably not. Last year I went, 9-0 or whatever in week 0, and they said it didn't count. So I've been lobbying now for a year to get week 0 games to count.
Yeah. Becky was like, I probably shouldn't even do picks this year because it's just not fair. And I'm like, come stop it.
Yeah, I get it. Well, hey, look, we all need to warm up. Becky doesn't, because Becky keeps kicking our tail every single year in this thing. So, all right, Stephen, thanks for your time today, man. Really do appreciate it. Good luck to your Rebels this year, and hotty toddy.
All right, thanks, man.